Well, hey there. So this week's theme is on responding to failure. If you watched last week's video, it was about public failure. I told you I'm doing themes of the week now. And last week was public failure because I had done a quote by James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, about public failure for athletes. And I thought, well, this week, let's move to the next level and talk about how do you respond to failure. And so in my podcast episode on Monday, I had a couple of quotes. I mentioned go back to earlier episodes, episode 62 and episode 75. Those were both in the John Wooden series that I did last year. And for both of those, and I said last year, it might have been 2 years ago now. Wow. Anyway, for both of those, they were two different of the building blocks and the mortars that Wooden had in his Pyramid of Success. But there were a couple quotes that really worked well within the concept. But I had two quotes this week that were not in those episodes. One by Michelle Obama, where she said, "Failure is part of the process. You just learn to pick yourself back up." And that's really the theme for today. This is how we respond to failure. The other quote was from, well, originally Confucius, but I also saw it attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson and to Nelson Mandela. And it's, "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail." I also saw the quote, instead of the word fail, using the word fall. So, not our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Either way works. And it's this concept that you're going to have failure. We talked last week about it's going to be public failure. Well, what do you do about it? You just, wallow in self-pity? Of course not. You keep going. You just get up. Every time I say this, I think of Finding Nemo. Dory, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. But it's a great attitude. My son loved Finding Nemo. I'm sure a lot of you have kids who love Finding Nemo. I'm sure a lot of you love Finding Nemo like we did. And so many of those movies have such great messages for kids, but that's a great message for all of us. Just keep swimming. Just keep going. Don't worry about the failure. It's going to happen. And like Michelle Obama says, you just pick yourself back up and you keep going. And yet, it's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing for kids to pick up. I am coaching right now. I'm coaching middle school girls basketball, 7th graders. And the majority of girls in our program never have played, or it's been years, pre-COVID. And once COVID hit, they couldn't play, they stopped. And so their skill levels are really far behind others in terms of their age. And yet, what do? I just say, well, you guys don't have the skills where you need to be to compete against the teams we're competing against. We just won't bother. Of course not. We just keep playing. Our first game we lost 69-9. Okay. And quite honestly, our first points we scored when we were down 54-0. And it was late in the game. Our second game, we lost 46-8. Last night, we lost 50-16. Upward movement? Absolutely. The scoreboard isn't everything. This is what I keep telling the girls. I'm not worried about the scoreboard. Now, it might sound like I am because I just gave you 3 scores of our games. But my point is, we keep improving. And that's what this is all about. They're going to fail. We are all going to fail. And this was what James Clear was saying. Athletics is a great place to teach you about failure, and it's public. Well, last night we played in front of, 100 people, whatever it was. Those people watched, plus our friends who are playing with us, and then the opponents. And yeah, we're going to have failure. How quickly you can get past your failure and recover from your mistakes and move on, that's going to be the key to your success. We as coaches need to help kids get past that. It's one of the things that we often say in our proactive coaching in our some of our presentations, but one in particular, we talk about the impact of trust. And one of the great ways for us as coaches to create, fearless competitors and is to build trust with our kids. And one of the best ways to do that is how we handle mistakes. So when they make their mistakes, because they're going to, as long as they make them at full effort and full attention, we got to dignify those. And we got to do all we can to help them get through those. One of the other things we say in one of our other presentations, in our Life Lessons for Athletes presentation, is how quickly they recover from a mistake is going to be key. And it's a great test of how mentally tough they are, how well they persevere through things. And so there's certain amounts of time that you have to recover from the mistakes you're going to make, the inevitable mistakes you're going to make. Well, whatever your sport you play, that has kind of a time determinant for you. And so we always say volleyball, it's about 8 seconds, because 8 seconds after the mistake you made, here comes the next serve, probably back at you. Well, if you're a 10-second recovery athlete, you can't play volleyball, right? I love the way Bruce Brown, our director, always said that. Well, the sport that I'm coaching, basketball, but I also have coached soccer. We don't have any time. When our girls dribble the ball off her foot or off of her knee, or the other girl sticks her hand in and steals it, which happens a lot, right? We don't get to stop and go, the official doesn't blow the whistle, let's give her a few seconds to recover from that mistake. No, we got to turn around and run the other way. Just got to pick yourself up and go. But we got to do it right now. So it's critical that we, as the leaders, we coaches, help kids understand that and get past that. I had to, these last couple of games, talk to some kids, especially in our 8th graders as well right now, a couple of them. They'll make a mistake. It's like, stop, quit stopping. I was about to say stop, but no, quit stopping, turn around and go, right? You got to get past it. You got to recognize that mistakes are part of it, failure is part of it, and you got to move on. And it's such a key for us to teach that to kids. I'm going to close with a quote that I didn't talk about in the podcast. I think I've read it once before during the Wooden series, but I have it in my Inspiration for the Graduate book, which is my book for coaches to give to graduating seniors. I'll be talking a little bit more about this near the end of the school year. I'll also be talking about my Senior Salute book here coming up in the next couple of weeks as the end of your seasons come, because those books are filled with quotes to help kids in the next phases of their lives, or with a variety of messages. Well, the one that I want to do mention today is from the chapter on perseverance in this book, and it's one I've loved for years. The man who wins may have been counted out several times, but didn't hear the referee. I had Jackson, but I've seen it attributed to an H.E. Johnson, so I've redone it in my newer versions. The man who wins may have been counted out several times, but didn't hear the referee. The concept that others are telling us, you failed, you made a mistake, whatever it is, we just didn't hear. We don't listen to those messages. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep fighting, keep trying, keep getting back up. I love the message. It's a message that not only do we want to extend to our kids, because that's who a lot of us, a lot of you are watching this because you coach or teach. They need to hear that message a lot from us as adults. But you know what? They need to see that message in action a lot from us as adults. We need to live that message so that we can model it for them, but also get through our own mistakes and our own failures. We'll talk to you again next time.